Hey all, this is Justine.
This is Alicia. We're here with Woo Manufacturing, joining you once again to talk about, being a female in engineering and what that looks like.
Yeah, we wanted to continue some of the conversations that we've been having around recognizing how you're feeling in the workspace. And so, we were just going to share some of our own experiences and some of our own methods of keeping others engaged with us and making sure that we're fully heard when we're saying and expressing things. So, and this works well with our last conversation that we had with Lola about just kind of awareness in the workspace. And it's just a topic worth continuing.
Yeah, and I just wanted to kind of say for the audience that, we have ranted in the last couple of episodes, and I fully think it was necessary because one of the things we're trying to do here is make sure that people understand that these things are happening and we've all experienced them, and we just want, the listeners, the people that stop by, to know that they're not alone, and give ourselves a space to talk about these things. And they're taboo and it might make people uncomfortable, but that's the whole point. So yeah, today we're going to redirect things and try to talk about how do we tackle some of these things, how do we bring awareness, how do we build collaboration and try to minimize the frustration in these spaces, take back our power, whatever that looks like. So Justine and I have a lot of experiences with some of these awkward situations like we talked about on our last episode, and we just want to come in and share some of that.
Yeah, I mean, and it's a really good point to make that a lot of the situations aren't really they're not meant to make you feel uncomfortable. But it is true that these things still happen, and it's worth acknowledging when you are feeling uncomfortable. And so, it's just a matter of getting to a state where everyone's respecting each other. And how do we actually do that? A lot of it is about listening. A lot of it's about interpreting people's responses to you and their body language, which for anyone who works around a lot of engineers realizes that some of the social cues are difficult for some of us. So it becomes kind of interesting to try and navigate some of these conversations when people are like, well, I didn't do that, or I didn't mean to make you feel uncomfortable. And you're just like, yeah, but well, you did. So let's talk about why and how we can try not to do that to each other moving forward. So
yeah, and I think in a lot of these situations where I think you and I have talked about confronting things that happened with some of our coworkers that were people that we didn't have any issues with, but did something that we thought was crossing a line or minimizing somebody or cutting somebody off. I think there's a whole methodology to having those conversations with people, because and we are coming at this with, we know your intention is not bad. I mean, I'm sure there's people out there with bad intentions. I mean, I know there are people,
yeah.
but most of these times, like, we're bringing it up for awareness, because if it made me feel a certain way, like I felt cut off or not heard, it's going to make the new engineers feel that way. It's probably happening in other conversations. So being open to take that feedback, and we need to have the right way of saying something so that it doesn't push somebody into defensive mode.
For sure. Yeah, because at the end of the day, it should always be a conversation. And it is very curious how quickly people can jump to being defensive because they're not fully aware of the impact. And it's really I personally get frustrated when I do something that's harmful to another person. And then in my frustration with myself, it comes out as frustration at others. But really, I'm just frustrated at the situation, which is something that I get to grow on. But it's also just worth keeping in mind that direct conflict actually comes to a lot of really healthy conclusions, and meeting things head on, um, although can feel uncomfortable, is ultimately a useful thing for everyone. Like, for instance, I've had experiences where I'll have like a pet name or something said to me, and it's like, "Oh, sweetheart," or something about
Yeah.
your looks or whatever. And sometimes it's even coming from people who are your friends. They're like your
Yeah.
buddies. You have good rapport with them. It's kind of like, I would call him bro, right? Like, I guess that's kind of a pet name, but it's more of like a nickname. But at the same time, there was a particular person who, he'd say pretty much a pet name to any woman. But
Yeah.
I was having a conversation with one of the other women working on the floor, and she brought up that he would call her names. And I finally kind of took pause, and I realized that him saying these things to me, I acknowledged, and I was like, whatever, it just makes him sound like an idiot, like, doesn't, no skin off my nose. And I
Yeah.
didn't correct anything. I didn't take a stop or make any comments about the particular name calling. And then when discussing this with another woman, it was actually diminishing how she was feeling, and it was diminishing, it was impacting how she felt she was being perceived by others, especially
Yeah.
as he says this name to her, right? And so not only was it a missed opportunity for me to correct with somebody that I had more rapport with this guy than she did, um, but it also led to my coworkers being impacted because she was experiencing the same stimulus, but the impact was greater for her. Um,
Yeah.
and so that was just a situation where it could have been better. Eventually, the pet name stopped. I think that it had to get escalated, which is just, it is a route to talk to their boss or talk to HR, and then it gets resolved. But sometimes if you can just put the human to the impact, I think it makes a better understanding for the person doing it, who doesn't mean negative, but is causing negative feelings at the end of the day.
Absolutely. I was gonna say, like, my journey has been really interesting because I went from not wanting to speak up and try to not make things about being me being a female, essentially. So I was, like, trying to make as little space as possible when I was, like, in my 20s, and I would let things happen to me because I was pretty terrified. I had no idea. I didn't know if I trusted HR or not. All I knew is if I go to HR, it'll probably get around, and then it'll be like,
Mm.
"What's going on with Alicia?" kinda thing. And
Hmm.
so I would just, like, hold my tongue. I would, essentially just be like, ah, he didn't mean it. Or, if I felt comfortable with somebody, I might say something back, but I was just kind of quiet. But then I changed over the years as I gained my confidence, and I was able to then, be unapologetic, speak up, say when something's wrong, pull somebody aside, have those tough conversations. And so I guess my point here is, you know, we want to help you guys with whatever portion you are in your career, whether you're just coming into this and maybe don't have a lot of or confidence in the space. It's kind of new to you. You don't really know all your coworkers. You don't know how things are going to react. There's tactics for that, and then there's tactics for when you do start to feel more comfortable and you do want to be able to speak up. And I think I've been through the whole spectrum of all of that, taking up too little space. Now maybe I take up a little too much space because I've overcompensated, and I have no qualms about speaking up and saying what's right, defending people, and all of that. But we're hopefully we can help you guys with some tactics. And as Justine had mentioned, the escalation piece is definitely something. But I'm just gonna say this: I have some great HR partners from my past who I did trust, but you do have to be cognizant and careful of what your company's HR department is going to do. And I mean, I would use that as a last resort and try to handle things yourself with your boss, the people that you trust in your corner, before you just automatically go to HR and assume that is going to go the right way, because they have to report it. They have to get your manager and the other people involved. And so it just kind of creates this whole thing when you just want to get your job done. Like, it's frustrating that somebody like ruins that for you.
Yeah, and it is challenging because you do want to maintain rapport, and if it feels like you're kind of going up the escalation ladder to resolve something, it can be not ill received, but then if people are going to like pick apart a situation versus having the conversation with the person and being like human to human about it, if you feel comfortable with that opportunity, then it tends to lead to pretty impactful conversations. So, and yeah, I guess I'm curious from your stance, Alicia, what can you remember when the taking up less space transitioned for you? Is there like an actual time that you can remember, or was it just like you weren't getting the results you needed from trying to brush off minimalization, or is it not that easy? It's just like was really squishy and organic and just kind of happened and grew?
I really think it just grew with my own confidence. I always tell people, they don't believe it, that I used to be really introverted in my early 20s, in my early part of my career. I was like terrified to even call, vendors and things like, I had to like really force myself to do it. And so over time, I grew confidence in my knowledge. I grew confidence in, my relationships with people, my ability to influence, because as an individual contributor, which I was for the first half of my career, you have to be able to influence people because you don't have authority. So you can't just go in blazing. So you just kind of start to gain that confidence and learn those tactics on how to have these conversations. And so probably like my 30s, like early 30s, is when I kind of started to get a little bit more in leadership. I was kind of feeling like I was a technical authority, which is, I think, is why I was, chosen to take the leadership path. And then things flipped for me. I was just like, no, I know what I know, and I'm only going to speak up when I know what I know. I will be the first to tell you when I don't know. But but I have my lines and I have my things, and I'm going to speak up and I'm going to call out wrong when it's wrong. I'm going to have those tough conversations, but it does come with confidence building and time.
Yeah. So it's sounding like as your career confidence grew, your interpersonal confidence also grew because you at least had the grounding to discuss the things that you understood, and you can draw the conversation back to the technical where you felt strong, and you could kind of diminish the stop treating me like I'm a woman situation.
Yeah.
It's like, I just need you to talk to me like a person, like human to human. Which is, yeah, that's worth acknowledging and knowing. I think my experience was a little different. And you actually called this out when we were working together, and I had not really thought about it until you brought it up to me. But I had a lot of self-assurance and confidence kind of just coming into it. I've always been I'm deeply extroverted. I like interacting with people. I like learning new people. It is enjoyable for me to create relationships. And so that's just been a really helpful skill for me when working with a variety of types of people and conversation styles. I felt comfortable in that space. So I felt comfortable speaking up. I felt comfortable advocating for quieter voices than mine. And through hard work, I've been able to gain more technical skill, but that's not where I started. I'm still in my 20s. And so I do feel like I have almost I almost need to reduce my cockiness in order to have more constructive conversations with people. So it's like a really interesting flip. And yeah, I just remember a time when you you actually complimented me on that, on my
Yep.
confidence and my stick to itiveness on speaking up when I knew that something needed to change. And I was really touched by that when that happened, because I respected you, and for you to acknowledge me in that way was great. It made me feel very seen and more heard than other people were willing to listen in that particular environment. So it was just like really, really great. So
It was super impressive to me watching you because yeah, Justine gives no damns. She comes in and you did know what you were talking about in the spaces we were in at that time period because you were an expert in all that brand new stuff that nobody was doing before because you were there from the beginning.
mhm.
And so you came in and you knew what needed to be done and you just didn't want to deal with the BS or excuses, and I just thought it was admirable. And of course I was comparing it to my own experience where I was really hesitant, nervous, sat back and, just let my work speak for itself, but didn't always feel confident speaking up in meetings. And
Mm.
so, I just knew you were somebody that I want to watch and, I want to see grow. And yeah, I mean, I think humbling yourself over the years has happened and is going to happen, but you're also going to gain additional confidence, and it'll be fun to see how your assertiveness grows and how your conversations grow as you continue to be a leader in your space. So yeah, it's been fun to watch.
Yeah, yeah, and I think skills are cultivated. So everyone's going to have individual strengths to begin with, and the things that you want to improve on uh, are the things that are the challenging ways of growth. And growing is always the healthier route. And so a lot of my growth opportunity is recognizing the worth of all workers, and giving people space to show their work and their contributions. um I don't always have the patience to do these things, and so yeah, I'm just very fiery, and I think that um having a lower heat setting will actually help a lot, to get people around me working as a team with me, so that you just get more work done when you have more hands working in the same direction. So
Yeah,
um
it's been what
yeah.
we've talked about a million times, Justine, is you and I have a really high bar for ourselves, and it's
Mm,
really hard to separate that from like how we expect others to work and perform. And so that's something I've been working on my whole career because I had a plant manager even in my 20s be like, Alicia, you need to give people grace. You need to realize that not everybody's bar is the same as yours, and you need to be patient with people, and all of that will help others grow. And it's something I've had to work on, and some things I did wrong previously, being vastly disappointed in people because they didn't meet my bar.
yeah. Yeah, and it's like a little unfair too, because people are still producing good work, and also the more variety and thought that I work with, the more humbled I get on, is like, wow, yeah, that's a different way of approaching the problem, which is a smart way of going about it. Um, and that's actually kind of, it works well in this conversation of like the reward of having a variety in voice means that you can meet a variety of problems in a more diverse and strong way, which is why it's always nice to celebrate the things that allies are doing for typically disenfranchised voices. It doesn't have to just be women. It's not all about the women. It is a big piece of it, and there is a discrepancy in the number of women being represented out in manufacturing than men. But even people who are quieter voices and their communication style is a little more humble, or like an undertone, um, it really helps when acknowledgement of other thoughts is actually encouraged. So I know that something that an ally of diversity is going to do is you're going to speak up for others, especially those who are being talked over or dismissed. I mean, it's even just things like sometimes someone says something that's not received at that point in the conversation, but it can be repeated and you can say, yeah, just as so and so said earlier, this, that, and the other. So you don't have to say like, everyone stop, say that again. Like quieter voices aren't necessarily going to want the attention drawn to them, but it is worth like citing your sources. You're like, oh, this idea was brought to me earlier by this person.
Yeah.
They can speak more to it, but I think that it's a really good idea. Things like that. If you do have a louder voice, it is worthwhile to share some of the thoughts that people aren't going to share themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, that was on my list to bring up, to be honest, is, you know, at the place we worked together, there were some bullies. I mean, that's just reality. And it, you know, I would make it a point to, you know, listen for the quieter female engineers that had amazing things to say but didn't always feel like they could speak up. And then, you know, sometimes they'd speak up and then they'd get talked over or kind of shut down by some of these bullies. And so, you know, I took it upon myself to put another target on my back. Why not? But to like at least push back and be like, oh no, we really, actually, that's a really great idea, so and so engineer, you know, can we talk about that, can we revisit it? Because I didn't care about this bully being upset with me. I'm pretty sure we weren't getting along anyway, but it's important to step up for those quiet voices like you keep mentioning, because they almost always have really intelligent, amazing ideas, but nobody's listening because they're not the loudest ones in the room. So, you know, I've tried really hard to like help people along, and I've had a lot of great people that have also done that, male allies included in many instances. So yeah, we got to look out for each other.
Yeah. And I've also experienced good examples of male allies. For instance, there was a time where a company I was working for was doing interviews, and I was asked to interview a male engineer for a given position, which wasn't the department that I worked in. And so I was a little confused at first. And I was like, whatever. Okay, fine. I'll talk with them. And part of the justification is as this role was a design engineer. And as the manufacturing engineer, if the product actually goes to the floor, I'm going to work with the designer to make sure that, or like I'll provide feedback if the design is hard to actually manufacture or needs tweaks and edits and whatever. So ultimately, yeah, the feedback on design is so important. And sometimes that feedback happens a little late in the game, which we can obviously talk about at some point.
Yeah.
Design reviews are actually important and should include a variety of people from the get-go, but I digress. And so when I was talking later with the person who ultimately would have been the boss of this person, they were saying, oh, I intentionally wanted you on the interview panel, not only because you're a good opinion of are they going to interact respectfully with the floor, but I also recognize that there was no other women interviewing this guy, and I kind of just wanted to see if he was an asshole, right? Like is he an asshole to chicks? Like in this coworker of mine who's a stellar guy, but like I was so happy to actually just hear him say the quiet parts out loud, right? Where even I was in the bias. I was like, I'm not gonna fucking work with this guy. Why am I on this interview? I don't care. Like I have so many other things to do. Blah 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 blah. And then he's like, no, I wanted to feel if there was a bit. Did you get a misogyny vibe from this guy? And I was like, huh,
Yeah,
cool. So
that's amazing. I love that.
yeah.
And it actually reminds me of at one of our previous employers, they would ultimately bring in females only when we were interviewing females. and it wasn't always like actual
Mm.
interviews, so they would bring in a female to just like have coffee with the candidate. And I always felt like that was super annoying and super weird, because like they're literally taking a female engineer to just like sit with somebody and give them somebody to talk to that's a female, versus letting the female engineer actually do the interview. When I interviewed, I
Mm.
interviewed with every female, but it was a small team and there were actually more females at the very beginning. But it just felt very calculated. And so I love hearing your story about how they wanted your opinion and they wanted to include you because they obviously respect you and your opinion. And, you represent the, plant engineering, the factory floor. And so you can
Mhm.
actually come in and speak from your perspective. And so I love that. It's like a success story.
Yeah. Yeah. And of course, with limited time and resources, I'm not saying that you need a diversity cancel every time you want to like hire a person, but they knew, okay, I want opinions from the floor, and being the only female voice, I might as well two birds, one stone it and see if there's any weird vibes with ability to work with a woman. So
Yeah,
it was good. I thought it was good.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's incredible. Yeah, I
Yeah.
wanted to tell one other story. I think we're getting close on time, but I wanted to tell a story of where like I did gain my confidence, and then I, basically just didn't back down in a very uncomfortable situation. So, I was at a food manufacturer, and I was asked to work on a project, and the VP of engineering was running it. And you could just tell when I met with him, he like just didn't give me the time of day. He wasn't really giving me the information I needed. I was obviously like forced upon him to like allow me to help. I had the right experience to help, but he just wanted nothing to do with me.
Mhm.
And he made me cry like in the very beginning, not gonna lie, he made me cry, but I just like kept at it. I just kept like harassing him and trying to like flip the script in my own head, like just keep coming at him. Like, what's gonna happen? He gets annoyed, like, and I'll just laugh, haha, you have to work with me, kind of thing. But just go back, smiling, like, what can I do to help? Here's what I saw today. And so it was funny. Like over time, I think I beat him down. Like you could tell we weren't great, but like he would talk to me and give me hugs when we were out and things like that. And like consensual hugs, like
Yeah.
but then we were at this recruiting event, and his son was in college and had interned with us, and his son walked up with a female that this engineer or this VP of engineering knew, and I was standing there. He's like, "Oh, this is Alicia. This woman, she tormented me. She wouldn't leave me alone. Every time I turned my back, there she was. She's like, give me this, let's do this." And I was like so exhausted by her. What a pain in my ass. And then he's like, but now we're tight. Now we're friends. Like he brought me in for a hug or whatever. And I'm like, is this good? Like that's a really weird introduction. But really my point is, we have a job to do. I had a job to go work on this project with this guy. I'm sorry that he's uncomfortable or doesn't want me to be around, but I did not let that stop me from going to do that job and make myself seen. And sometimes it's fun to make them uncomfortable. Like I wasn't losing anything as long as I can keep from crying when he's a jerk. But I figured out how to flip it and take back my power and get what I needed to get done.
Yeah. I mean, and this man could have pushed anybody away, and he's just was messing with the wrong chick. You're like, no, we got a job to get done, my friend.
Right? I do
You're
not
gonna
give
be my
up.
friend. God damn it. No, I think that's good. And I mean, there's a lot of ways that you can skin some of these conversations. I think we'll talk a little bit more about this, and maybe be more like intentional about saying good tactics and methods of having these conversations and listening to these smaller thoughts in the back of our heads.
See you guys next time.